I'm Carissa Anthony. I'm the Prevention and Development Coordinator for Homewood City Schools. I also coordinate the Safe and Healthy Homewood Coalition. So a lot of you may have found out about this particular webinar through our alert system, where we, send out information on, things to help parents with parenting and just awareness and those kind of things. So this is our first time. We do a lot of parent education programs, but this is our first time that we've gotten to do one that's specifically for or geared kind of toward that elementary age parent. And so we're excited that we're able to do this today, and so appreciative of two of our school student assistance counselors that were willing to put this together, put all this effort into it, and are here to share their wisdom. So let me introduce who they are. Anna Kate Proom is a licensed clinical social worker and the student assistance counselor at Homewood Middle School. She has worked with students as a social worker for many years and is also a parent of 3 children who range in age from 1 to 10 years old. So she's right there with you guys if you're raising an elementary age child. In her free time, she enjoys reading and running. Tara Mines is a licensed professional counselor and the student assistance counselor for our elementary schools. She has over 20 years of experience working with students. She is the mother of 3 children, ages 10, 15, and 18. So she spans the whole spectrum there. In her free time, she enjoys scrapbooking, spending time in nature, and Auburn basketball. So thank you, ladies, for being willing to provide this information to us, and I'm going to let them take over from here.
All right, good morning. Thank you guys for being here today. We're so excited to be able to do this. As Carissa said, I am Tara Vines. Some of you might have seen my face around the school building. I am a student assistance counselor for the elementary school, so at Hawkins, Shades, Cahaba, and Edgewood. So I am so excited that Anna Kate and I are able to do this for you guys today. The first thing we really want to do is just kind of talk about what is a meltdown, because I know, and let me just normalize this for you guys, we see meltdowns all the time in our homes, at school, everywhere. So the grocery store, you name it. So I think this is something that we all have in common as parents. Typically our kids at one time or another are going to have a meltdown. So when they're having a meltdown is basically anytime a child becomes flooded or overwhelmed with emotion. And when this happens, they're unable to continue the simple task of what they were doing. So what I see, especially in my own family, is sometimes it is a simple task, but it is too much for the child because we don't know what's going on in that child's mind at that time. Really, any kind of behavior is a type of communication. So the one thing we need to do is to slow down and make sure we're understanding that this meltdown, the crying, the screaming, whatever is going on is your child's way of communicating. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that we have a connection with the child. You as a grown-up, a caregiver, a parent, you have a great opportunity to stay connected with your child. If you think about it, your child goes to school all day long and then they come home and you are their safe person, their safe place. They feel comfortable. It's their chance to unwind. So you have that important role of being connected with them. I really love this slide. It says authentic connection is defined by what the child perceives as connection, not by what we intend as connection. So to connect with a child, we must observe, slow down, understand them, and meet them where they are. So let's talk first about the role of the grown-up, the caregiver, the parent, wherever you fall. Whatever your role is with the child. The first thing we want to do is to try and stay curious. I love this. Sometimes we know exactly what's going on. Sometimes we don't. But if we kind of stay curious and ask questions, that will help the child open up to us. So a lot of times we get into wanting to ask yes or no questions. We want to stay with trying to get them to communicate with us. So what's going on? Tell me what was good about your day. Tell me what was hard about your day. Those are great things just to do on a daily basis with your child. I mentioned before, behavior, any kind of behavior is a type or a form of communication. Sometimes for me, if I just stop and remind myself of that, it helps me stay more in control of my own emotions and stay regulated myself. If I remember, okay, something's going on with this kiddo, I got to figure out what it is and I got to help them through it. We are their anchor and their safe place. So as we are having this role, we are teaching them how to identify emotions and manage their big feelings, because our kids, especially right now, all have big feelings. We're seeing that in the elementary schools. We're seeing it at home. We're seeing it even in middle school and high school. So they all are dealing with a lot of big feelings and big emotions.
Tara, I might just jump in and also say that, the younger our children are and less socially, emotionally developed, the less able they are to use words to express how they feel. So
absolutely,
that's when we say behavior is communication, if they're, younger or just less mature, they're not going to be able to say, my friend was really mean to me on the playground, and so I feel really sad and upset right now. They might instead throw themselves on the ground when they get home, refuse to do the chore, the routine that's expected of them, which is very frustrating to us, but underneath there's something going on. So that's kind of what we mean by behavior. We're trying to kind of uncover what's beneath the behavior.
Yeah, and that's where thank you for adding that. I think that's where that stay curious piece comes into, continue. You don't want to bombard them with questions, but if you can kind of get to the bottom of it and kind of figure out, and it might even be like, asking them things about, how are your friendships? What happened? What's going on at school? Those kind of things. And we're going to get to this a little bit later, but doing that on a daily basis then helps when we get to the point where we're kind of in the middle of these situations where we feel like the child has lost control. And along those, we popped in just this feelings chart. This is something that's good. You can get these on Pinterest. There are lots of freebies out there with these kind of things, all different kinds of people, emojis, or whatever. I think it's a really good idea just to have one of these printed off and maybe hang it on your refrigerator or in a common place in your home. And just, maybe before dinner, hey, how was your day? And get them to kind of point. If they can't, like Anna Kate is saying, they don't know how to describe what they're feeling, sometimes a feelings chart can help them work through that. So this is just one example. Like I said, there's a lot out there. We talked some about just trying to figure out and stay curious about what's going on with your child. So I'm going to let Anna Kate kind of cover some of our basic needs that our children have on a daily basis.
Okay, so, the first thing we want to think about when our child is melting down is basic needs. So are they tired? Are they hungry? Or are they sick? And we all know this logically, that all of those things, they're being tired, hungry, or sick, can really affect their emotions. But that's kind of the first place we need to go. And if they are coming home from school and need a snack, they might not have eaten as much at lunch as they needed to, or they got a rough night of sleep or not as much sleep the night before. That might be accounting for some of these big emotions that are coming out. So we put a little image of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is something we talk about. And it basically just shows that we need these foundational needs, these bottom level needs at the very bottom. We need those to be met before we can actually achieve this like self-actualization, happiness, ability to express healthy emotions, that kind of thing. We have to have these basic needs in check. And we know that as parents, like when we have a rough night of sleep or just feeling terrible, it's really hard to be at our best. So that's kind of the first question we want to ask of ourselves is this something that we can at least start to fix by giving them a snack, letting them rest for a minute, that kind of thing. We'll talk in a later slide about sleep, but sleep is definitely something that we see a lot at the schools as a source of troubling behavior or just like increased irritability, and up and down emotions. So we'll talk about that later, but sleep is really huge. Another thing to think about with this is like, when are the meltdowns occurring? Is there a pattern that's happening? A lot of times we see meltdowns before bedtime. We know that's probably because our children are tired and their capacity to manage themselves like decreases the more tired they get. So just think about when the meltdowns are occurring. The second thing we want to do as parents is to take a beat. So the meltdown is occurring. It can tend to like send us up into this really escalated state because you're like, I'm in Target and my child is melting down, or I'm at home and I'm trying to get dinner on the table or trying to get homework done and this is happening. And we just kind of want to fix the problem immediately. A lot of times that backfires because our children don't really want to be like fixed immediately. So if we can try and take a beat, take a second to stay calm and steady, even as the meltdown is going on, as long as everybody's safe, but just try and maintain your own calm. Our children, more than we realize, especially in the moment, look to us to be their calm and steady anchor. So as they are escalating, it very much helps them if we can stay level. That's harder than it's easier said than done. But if we can use our coping skills as adults, then that can help. This is also great modeling for your child. So you might need to say, I need to take a minute and walk, if your child is safe, walk into the other room, take a few breaths, and then return. You might just be able to do it right there with them. Say, I'm going to take some deep breaths because we're all having a hard time. And actually, they can watch you breathe in and out. We're going to talk about those deep breaths and how to do that later. Counting to 10, any coping skills that you can use to keep yourself steady is helpful. I know I've done my fair share of that when things feel really chaotic. And my children now kind of can see when I'm taking some deep breaths, and that's really, really good modeling. All right, the next thing we want to do when our children are melting down is to connect with them. So again, this is more about relational, emotional connecting rather than controlling and managing their behavior. So this is something that author Dan Siegel writes about a good bit. You might have read a book of his. He's written several, but he talks about connect before redirect. So you're connecting with your child. You're showing them that you care and that you're with them and that they're safe, validating them in the moment. This does not mean you are excusing bad behavior, that you're not communicating that anything they do is totally fine. You are just saying, like, I love you. I'm here for you. We're in this together. So this is an example of something you can say, like, I see you. You're having some big feelings. We're going to work through this together. I'm here. A lot of times if a child is smaller or on the floor, it's helpful to get down on eye level kind of with them if they're not, thrashing around and going to hit you, but kind of get at their level and say, like, I'm here, I see you. That communicates that they are safe. And often kids, when they feel that connection, they will just start to take it down a notch. If we go in first and they're like, you need to stop it, get up right now, you're making a scene. If we try to like reason with them or like, you don't really need to be feeling this way, like that's silly, why are you doing this? Their brains physically, this is what Dan Siegel talks about, their brains cannot process your logical reasoning in that moment. When they are that escalated, they can't process it. What they can process is this emotional connection. Now, after they have that emotional connection and start to de-escalate, then we can go in with some of the logic and the reasoning and even going back and saying, how can we handle this differently next time? Because you throwing yourself down in the middle of the store was really hard for us. Like that, but that has to happen later. They cannot reason with us when they are that escalated. Tara, did you want to
Anna Kate, I'm jumping in right there, and kind of wanted to go back to what you were saying about the behavior, and if they are actively acting out, and we don't want to miss the discipline piece here, because I think a lot of times we want to discipline as parents. In one of these meltdowns, maybe they break something, or they throw something, or they're saying things that are unkind, or hurting a sibling, whatever. like what Anna Kate's saying, going after the fact when they're calm, revisiting that and offering a consequence that you think is appropriate. So, if they threw something and broke something, it would be an appropriate time to say, I know you're angry. It's really okay for you to be angry. But when we're angry, we have to make good choices. And we did not make a good choice. We threw something and we broke it. So we're going to need to do some extra chores to earn some money to pay for whatever that item is. So we don't want to miss that holding them accountable for their actions piece either. But again, not in the moment. I think a lot of times we want to start laying on the consequences and taking things away and privileges away, and their brain just is shut down and cannot handle it at that point. So always wait until a calm moment to revisit those things.
Yeah, thank you, Tara. I think they are much more able to process the meaning of the consequence if they are in that calmer state. They're also able to reflect on a better choice that they could have made or a different coping skill that they can use when they feel really angry. That's all part of that follow-up discussion.
And I love the eye level with the child there too. I was telling Anna Kate yesterday, my husband is really, really tall. So we don't really think about that, but it really makes a difference. If you're really grown up, sometimes can feel intimidating to kids. So really getting down on their level can really be helpful when you're trying to make that connection piece too. So now I thought it would be fun just to take some time. I know I have always wanted to know, okay, what can I do? This is going on in my home. I've got to have some help. What can I do to help? And I do this at school a lot with students, trying to help them. They might get overwhelmed in a classroom, and then we do a lot of breaks when they need to come out. And we just need to provide them with these skills and help them learn these skills. The goal here is to make sure they learn them and they can learn doing them on their own, because they're going to need these skills and these coping skills throughout life. So we're going to need them in a preschool, in elementary school, and then in middle school, high school, and on into college and adult life. So their brains are growing and learning. They're just sponges soaking up everything and watching everything. So being able to help them and teach them these skills is super important. And I'm seeing a lot of kids just sometimes don't get it. So they're not slowing down and taking time to learn how to control all of their big feelings and their emotions. So that's where you guys as parents can really come in and help teach them. I kind of like to think of this as like a sport or an activity. It's something you have to practice. So if you have someone who's really good at gymnastics, your daughter is, extremely gifted in this, and she did not just go out there the first day and be able to land a back handspring. She had to practice. Basketball players don't go out and immediately know how to play basketball. They have to practice. Math does not come naturally. We have to practice with homework and extra things like that. So I will say the big thing about this is just normalizing it in your family and making it something you just kind of do together. So I'm going to give y'all a few examples of some things you can do in your home to kind of help get the ball rolling and help practice these things with your kids. These are also things that your counselors and your student assistance counselors and your teachers are incorporating into the classroom. So one idea is to have a calm corner. We have a calm corner in a lot of classrooms here at the schools. We also do in the counseling offices. So most of the students know where they can go if they need to take a break. In your calm corner, and it might not be a whole corner. It might be like, I have a little basket. So I have a basket of things. If the child knows where the basket is, and you can have them practice this on a good day. I mean, they might need something to do and they're bored. They can practice with their basket of fidgets or calming toys. So I was going to show y'all a couple of things that I have. One, and we actually made this. It's a glitter jar. It's a fun craft if you have girls that like crafts. It's very easy to do. It's just a jar. You can do a mason jar, water, food coloring, some glitter. Kids absolutely love this. And it's a great distractor. It's a great thing to take their mind off of whatever is going on that has them very upset. And as they're playing with it, sometimes they'll start to open up and talk about what's going on. So that's fun. this fun little guy, my daughter actually found. Y'all have probably seen these. I love this guy. I keep him on my desk at school, actually, and the kids love to come in. And if they don't feel like talking or they can't tell me how they're feeling, they will say, "This is me today." Or they will flip the little guy over and he'll be like this. So I keep one of these in my house. I keep one at work. Sometimes he's been known to show up in my car. So he is really good to kind of help us gauge where our kids are at any given time. So have him. I have a Rubik's Cube. They love the Rubik's Cube. I'll tell you another really good thing is bubbles. So bubbles are really good. Just if we need a distraction, hey, let's go walk outside and blow some bubbles. Let's just take a break from math. Let's take a break from cleaning your room, whatever it is that has kind of triggered the meltdown, and let's go blow some bubbles. Kids love bubbles. I also keep, and we have a lot in our basket of Play-Doh, which is really fun. And then any kind of other little fidget, like I just happened to find this little guy laying around today. So that's just some ideas. You can go to Dollar Tree. There are tons of all kinds of things. Kids love fidgets nowadays. So I kind of recommend that for any house with elementary kids and older. Even my my high schoolers like it. So other thing I would say is sometimes it's just can redirect them to take a bubble bath or a shower, and just being able again to have a break and be able to have that time to calm down will really help them reset. Taking a walk outside. Anytime you can incorporate humor, I think that works really well for kids. If they're crying and you can tell a joke or you can bring something to their memory that is funny, that will sometimes help them reset. Also, and I know we love this at the elementary schools, are the facility dogs. And a lot of you guys have pets, cats, dogs, hamsters, gerbils, whatever. They are great. And this is not a ploy to go out and get a pet, but they can really be utilized to help kids if they're feeling stressed or anxious. So, hang on, I'm looking through it, Anna-Kate. Okay, I will say we do have some of our population, and some of you might have children that have special diagnoses, like an autism diagnosis or an ADHD diagnosis. Some kids are just very sensory oriented. So any kind of sensory things are helpful for these kids. I've seen that an inflatable couch that you can have kind of helps them feel secure. They have like all different kinds of things that you can look at that are pretty inexpensive. Also, a weighted blanket or a weighted stuffed animal. Those kind of give the kids that are struggling. Someone mentioned a hammock is a good idea. Yeah, there's a hammock. I'm trying to think. There's like a swing. There's like I don't know what that thing, a pod. I don't know what that's called. Anna-Kate, you might know, but there's all kinds of different things like that you can have to help them feel safe and secure, especially these kids that are really sensory. We call them sensory seekers. So I love the idea of a weighted blanket. I think especially for kids that are kind of have those other things that are going on and those sensory issues going on. I think they even have like smaller versions of the weighted blankets. So that's always a good idea. So
one thing I thought with sensory, Tara, is the kinetic sand that I think all of our counselors in the building have a tray of kinetic sand and tools. I think we got them on Amazon. But even middle schoolers love the kinetic sand. Something about the sensory, the sensation of just, using the tools in it, is calming to them. Another thing that we've been using lately is, some children, if they're really escalated, it helps to like have a sour or really strong candy in their mouth. And again, what's age appropriate for your child, but like a Jolly Rancher or something sour that they can just kind of like stops their thoughts from spiraling. So if you think that's something that might help. And then I just kind of wanted to say, like, Tara's going to go through some specific exercises you can do with breathing and grounding, but I encourage you to practice these. Yeah, absolutely. Music. Somebody just put that in the chat. That absolutely is helpful. I I encourage you all to practice these with kids when they're in their good moments, because it's hard to pull them out as tools when things are really going awry. So, talking about a calm corner, practicing your breathing, practicing really any of these things, and just talking about them in the context of coping skills we can use to help us when we're not feeling great. I think that's helpful when things start to go south.
Yeah, so I think that's a great segue into the grounding exercise. I don't know if is that the next one? Yeah. Well, that's the breathing. Okay, we'll do breathing first. So this is one of and these will be in the handouts hopefully, but this is one of the breathing exercises that I have kind of taught some of the students here. I think several of the teachers go over this. I know the counselors do. So just to kind of walk you through it, and you can even give them like a reminder, like, okay, let's do, calm palm. So basically what they do is they hold up their 5 fingers like this, and you want to talk them through it, and want to really draw attention to what they're doing. Spread your fingers really wide, and we're going to take your other finger, and we're going to trace your palm, and we're going to breathe as we trace your palm. So you would take in a deep breath and breathe in, and then breathe out, and breathe in and breathe out, and trace your hand and go through that, and then repeat it 3 times. I know I'm going kind of fast, but you want to slow it down with them. You could even do it. I mean, we're talking a lot about modeling. I mean, you're in the car and you're stuck in traffic and you're frustrated. Model this. Your child's watching you. They're going to see, oh, mom's really upset right now because we're stuck in traffic and we're going to be late. So if you model it and they see you doing it, they're going to be more apt to use these skills when they are feeling the same way. And the next one I love, I think the next one is the grounding. When I'm, oh, okay, well, another breathing one. I keep wanting to get to that grounding one. The hot cocoa breathing. So I brought my beautiful heart cup for Valentine's Day, but another one, it's just, and this is kind of part of when we're saying grounding, we're talking about like getting in touch with your senses, things you can smell, things you can feel. So this is a really good one. If you don't, you can imagine it. So you can even or take a cup of hot chocolate, whatever. I mean, I would say imagine it. Your child, what you have accessible to you, but sometimes even if they're upset, fix them a cup of hot cocoa. I mean, that can really help. But what you're going to do with the breathing is you want to get them to imagine that cup of hot cocoa. They're going to imagine holding the mug, imagine feeling the warmth of it. They're going to breathe in slowly. They're going to hold it up. They're going to breathe in really slowly and smell the hot chocolate smell. And then you want to ask them, what does that smell like to you? And as you're doing this, you're calming their brain. It's helping them get back to a state where they can think clearly, where they can be in control of their emotions. And that little exercise should be in the handouts too.
Yeah. And I would just say, like, I know sometimes when I try to help my children to do this and they're having a moment, they're like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do deep breathing. Then sometimes I will just start to do it. And if it's my little guy, I try to kind of like, hold him a little bit and just do very audibly and like exaggerated, do some deep breathing. And I feel like if he can kind of feel my deep breathing, then that kind of just translate to him and he'll start doing it too. With my older daughter, I will just kind of start doing it in front of her, even if she's like refusing in the moment, and it kind of changes the tone and encourages her to do it without me being like, you must try deep breathing. So just going ahead and diving in with whatever coping strategy you think might help in the moment, and doing it in front of them can help.
Oh yeah, here it is. Okay. So this is a grounding exercise, and I always joke around. I'm like, not grounding like you're losing all your privileges or anything, but it's grounded like we want to be attuned to what's going on around us. So I teach this to a lot of students that I work with. So what we do is I get them to be super quiet. So we'll just be super quiet for a little while. And then I'll get them to say, okay, tell me 5 things you can hear. And I've done this with my own kids too. It works like a charm. So they'll get really quiet and then they'll start listening. And it's amazing what you can hear when you're super quiet. So they'll hear things like a bird outside, or someone talking in the hallway, or water dripping. So I get them to name 5 things they can hear. Then I get them to look around and name 4 things they can see. And then 3 things they can touch, 2 things they can smell, and 1 thing they can taste. So a lot of times we want to get them back into reality. So we, again, I think Anna Kate mentioned having a gum mint, a sip of water, something they can smell. Sometimes I have like some hand sanitizer or some lotion, something that simple of rubbing that on your hand and then smelling it. These kind of things. And again, practicing, modeling, and then trying to remind them in the moment of some things they might can do. The end goal is that they will start initiating and doing these things when they start feeling like they're getting upset.
Okay, so we also wanted to just cover some reminders. These are reminders for all of us as parents that there are certain things we can do to set our kids up for success. So we mentioned this earlier, but sleep is probably the biggest contributor to, mood swings at school, at home. Sometimes it's hard to remember that our elementary school children really need 10 to 11 hours of sleep, and that's a lot. So if we back that up from when they wake up in the morning, sometimes that's going to bed at 7:30 or 8, which can feel early to us, especially if we're busy during the day working or going to activities and we get home at 6. Like, that's only an hour and a half. So think about whether your child is getting that amount of sleep. If you have questions about that, or if your child struggles with sleep, I encourage you, pediatrician is always our first recommendation. There's a lot of, healthy sleep habits and extra sleep supports that parents can use, but sleep is so important. The second thing is routine, and our elementary school teachers do a great job of this in the classroom. Like, that's something they work on at the very beginning of school, so that their students know what to expect and when to expect it. They have visual reminders up in the class. And that's something that we can really replicate at home. Predictability is comforting to children, and it helps them. Even though they might resist that routine and predictability, having the same things occur in the same order is super helpful. So think about those spots in your day where you have to get a lot done or transition from one thing to another. That's where routine is key. And so even little things like, bedtime routine, we're going to read a book, we're going to take a bath, we're going to read a book, we're going to brush our teeth and go to bed. And it's the same every night. That's very helpful for kids. Think about the morning routine. Mornings can be hairy with kids. So, waking up at the same time during the week at least, and doing the same thing in the same order. If you want to incorporate some of those visual cues, there's a lot of free clip art and things like that you can print and post in the bathroom, in their room, in the kitchen. A lot of times that can be really helpful for kids. If they're older elementary, having a checklist of stuff they have to do every morning is helpful. And that's hard to sustain over the course of the school year. But even if they just do that for a week, they can kind of get reset into the habits that they need to be keeping in the morning. So think about routines. And again, those routines can differ. Like, the weekdays are going to be different than the weekends, but you might have different weekend routines that you really want to reinforce as well. So think about what routines, if there are any that could improve. The second thing is to know their triggers. So, and try to kind of anticipate those and help them in advance. So if it's a parent being out of town, if you know your child is going to have a substitute, if you know that a certain transition during the day is really hard for them, getting off screens at night, if they have a certain amount of screen time and then you turn it off, either TV or a tablet, like, if you know that's going to trigger them, try to help them, give them a warning before they start, prep them for, we're going to watch one show and then we're going to turn it off, try to kind of anticipate those triggers and help them through it ahead of time. Regular healthy meals, again, this is just a reminder. Some parents find that if a child has a lot of sugar, that can contribute to behaviors that aren't helpful. But just think about being sure your child has those regular healthy meals. Screen time is another thing that at school we see the ramification of. Please, limit the screen time to an appropriate amount that works for your family. In particular, trying to get those screens off 30 minutes to an hour before bedtime. We know that really helps sleep. So think about what limits you can set on screen time. We've touched on this with the feelings vocabulary. I'm just seeing this comment, the feelings flashcards. Yes, I actually have those in my office, but Todd Parr is an author. He has some feelings flashcards that are really great, but just building a feelings vocabulary that you're not just using when things get bad, right? Like, so you might be reading a book with your child if they're younger and say like, gosh, I wonder what that character was feeling. What do you think they were feeling in that moment? And you can pull out the feelings chart or not. You can use feelings in your own vocabulary as a parent. If you're talking about your day at dinner, say, yeah, I had a moment when I was pretty frustrated with one of my coworkers and I had to kind of work through that. I mean, being honest about your feelings and talking about feelings, both good and bad feelings, just helps normalize that. And again, kind of hacks away at that stigma of talking about your feelings is a bad thing. We want talking about our feelings to be really normalized. And then the last thing is just to have realistic goals and expectations for things like activities, travel, changes in routine, school changes. So we know these things are going to throw some kids off. You are the expert on your child, so you probably know what those things are. So anticipating those, adjusting our own expectations, and helping prepare our kids is always helpful. Tara, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I was going to go back to the feelings vocabulary. I saw someone popped up about games. You can use any kind. I do a lot of playing games with the students at the schools, and you can use just about any game. I can make any game a feelings game just about. So take Candyland, for instance. It's a great one because they're all the colors and you can associate colors with a feeling. So you could, you don't, not the whole entire time you're playing Candyland because that's going to get annoying to the kid, but you can always say, kind of throw that in when you're playing games with your kids. Sheets and ladders is another good one. You just talk about choices and feelings. If you look at the little pictures on sheets and ladders, it's a really good one where I think there's one like most of the way that game is built, when you climb up a ladder, it's a good choice and they're feeling proud and accomplished and met a goal and they're getting a reward for that goal. So that's a really good one. Uno is a really good one to play, and you can incorporate feelings into Uno with if you play a red card, I want you to tell me about a time when you felt angry, or if you play a blue card, tell me about a time when maybe you felt sad or a friend felt sad. So just kind of talking about it, like Anna Kate was saying, if watching shows, movies, books, anything like that is a great way to incorporate that feelings vocabulary. I did have a couple of books. Go ahead. Sorry.
One more thing. I just want to remind us, I remind myself of this a lot. The context of all this is that we want our children to grow into adults who can identify what they're feeling when they're feeling it, because that's the first step to coping with difficult things that we know are going to happen to all of us in life. We can identify how we're feeling when we're feeling it, and not just mad, sad, happy, but confused, proud, frustrated, those more complex feelings. Like we want to grow kids who can say, I'm feeling confused right now, I need to talk to someone, or I'm feeling frustrated right now, I need to take a beat and step away. That is the goal. And so that's what we're talking about with feelings vocabulary. Okay, sorry, Tara.
No, you're good. So I had a couple of books I was going to show y'all. This one is The Boy Who Had Big Feelings. And these are great just to read with your kids, incorporate them into your nightly routine when you're reading books with your child, or whenever you have that opportunity to read to them. So this is a great one about a little boy who just has some really big feelings. He goes around and he thinks he's the only one, and then he meets a a girl, I think, that has big feelings too, and they make this connection, and then they realize everybody has feelings. So this is a good one. I think this one might not be on that list right there. So it's by Brittany Wynn Lee, The Boy with Big Feelings. This one I really love. It's real basic about feelings. It's The Color Monster. And it goes through, and the first part of it is that the monster has all his feelings are confused. So they're all mixed up. And so it goes through, and the little girl helps him untangle all the feelings that he has. So I use this one a lot, and we talk about how do we separate the feelings so that we know more what's going on with us on a daily basis. So it's super cute. Feelings monster. Sorry, Color Monster. Okay. And then this one I have too. It's called In My Heart, and it talks about how our heart is just a home for our feelings. And it goes through lots of different ones and some more complex feelings. So this is really good. And then I have some other activities that I use that go along with the heart book, but it's a great one just to have at home, and you can talk about times when you have felt a certain way, and then it also opens the door for your children to kind of tell you about times they felt a certain way. And then the other one, What Should Danny Do? I could not find when I came over here. I think I left it at a school somewhere. But it is a great one about just making choices and helping a child walk through their day and the many choices that we have to make. So the goal is, I think, as we start building this in your home and in the classroom and in the school, the end all goal would be that we would see these meltdowns that you guys are having kind of lessen and not have as many. And then again, that the child would start learning ways that they can cope with them.
Tara, there was a question about whether these books could be used for middle school. I think they can. You know your child better than anyone, but I think they can be used, and it's all about how you use them, right? So, what context you put them in and that kind of thing, how you explain it. But I think they can definitely be used as a tool with middle schoolers. Okay. Tara, are we ready for this slide?
Yeah, unless you had something you wanted to add to that.
No, I don't think so. Yes, there's so many books. I think there's a lot coming up in the chat. So if you all want to take note of those, and then even just in Amazon, so many of these are available at the public libraries, but also in a quick Amazon search, you could probably find a lot.
Another thing I've done too is, YouTube will sometimes have somebody that'll even read the book. So if you're scrambling and you don't have one, never fear. Go to YouTube and you can pull up a book and they will read it to you. And sometimes that's good because you can just sit by your child and listen and not have to read it to them.
We wanted to kind of wrap up and remind everybody, I'm just reading this comment. Okay. That there are resources in our schools and communities that you can access. I'm sure you all know about these, but just as a reminder, your pediatrician is always a really good starting point. They don't just do purely, body medical. They are really, really great to talk to about behavior and emotional things that are coming up. So we always encourage our parents to start with the pediatrician. Our school counselors are wonderful. We are student assistance counselors, and we work really closely with the school counselors. So we are both resources that you can reach out to. Our emails are going to be in the next slide. And then our local helping professionals. We have a lot in our community. We have licensed counselors, licensed social workers, psychologists, psychiatrists. Each one of those has a little bit of a different niche, but all of those groups of folks are helpful. I know that a lot of them have wait lists right now. So if you are contemplating reaching out to a counselor or one of these helping professionals, I would say go ahead and do that. If you need to cancel the appointment or things change, you can always do that. But Some of these wait lists right now are like over a month long. And so I'm seeing some good comments about these. So thank you. So go ahead and get on that wait list. We have resource lists at the school. You can also use Psychiatry Today, Psychology Today is a really good, helpful website that you can pull up and search by different filters. So like location, type of professional, insurance. So Psychology Today is helpful with that as well. And then lastly, the PERC line. This is the Pediatric Intake Response Center at Children's. It's an amazing resource that's relatively new as of the last few years. They're located in the Children's ER, but they are a phone line where you can call. I think the hours are 8 to 11, and you can call and just ask about resources. They have kind of an up-to-date ongoing list of resources that they can help you with. They can also help with any emotional or behavioral situations that are difficult and you might need assistance with. So it doesn't mean you're necessarily taking your child into the ER, but they are licensed mental health professionals who are trained to kind of listen to parents. They're not an advice line, but they can give you resources. So that's a really helpful resource in our community. Tara, did you
And I would say, don't hesitate. We, I know the school counselors and the student assistance counselors, myself, Anna Kate, and Katie Smith, we have a good resource list here. So if you need help locating a mental health professional, please don't hesitate to reach out to one of us and we can help you try and find somebody that'd be a good fit for your family. And then the thing that, and I don't know if this is on the next slide or not, but one thing to remember is, meltdowns are they're a part of just normal everyday life to some extent. But what you want to look for is if the meltdowns are increasing in frequency or duration or intensity, those would be kind of some signs that maybe you need to seek out some extra help and reach out to your school counselor to see if maybe it's an option for them to check in with your child, or for the student assistance counselor to check in with your child. So your child better than anybody else. So if you kind of start noticing things are maybe headed in the wrong direction and not getting better, that would be a good time to reach out to somebody else for assistance.
These are just some of the books that we have that we think are good. There's so many great parenting books out there, but Dan Siegel is the author that I referred to earlier. His books are really good. And then there's some other ones. And this is on the PDF that Carissa linked at the beginning, has this slideshow that includes this slide. And then lastly, we wanted to just end with our contact information. So just as a reminder, Tara is based at the elementary schools. I'm at the middle school. And then Katie Smith is our student assistance counselor who's located at the high school. And then these are our email addresses. All right. So if there are any, we had some really good comments and a couple questions that popped up. If there's anything that you want to add, additional questions in the chat, you can definitely do that now.
Okay, I put the presentation, another copy of it, in the chat. So it's linked over there. I do know we have one comment about how hard it has been to get care for young children, mental health care for young children. And I think you guys addressed that most places do have a waiting list right now.
Yeah, and I would say, being open to reaching out to a number of different providers. And I know most people have a preferred or somebody who's recommended, but if they have a long wait list, feel free to reach out to us for some other options for you to kind of call around and see.
I see your question. The best place I would suggest for you to start is really with your pediatrician. I don't know if you've started with the pediatrician, but they are filling in a lot of gaps, especially in the ADHD realm. not sure about specific testing with them, but that's always a great place to start.
Yeah, and if you're yeah, I was going to say what Katie just said in the chat. Feel free to reach out to us for more specific ideas. If you want to share with us like who you've already reached out to, we might be able to kind of go down our list and see if there's anyone you haven't tried.
As always, we want to remember to, as parents, to take good care of ourselves so that when we do that, we're taking care, we're better parents. We're taking care of our kids too. So thanks for that reminder.
I'm glad to see this comment that the school staff has been helpful even while it's so hard to get mental health care. That's really good to hear. And yeah, you're not the only one facing that. This is a tough time. So.
Thank you both very much for everything you've done, providing this information. Thank you to all the parents out there and others that have joined us. And for those of you who've added some richness to this discussion in the chat. We appreciate those resources that you were willing to share. So thank you all, and everyone have a great day.